Hello everyone and welcome back to the Shadows of Evil Alpha. Recently, I got access to a bunch of internal dev documents for Black Ops 3, and we already covered a whole bunch of them in the last video, but today, we have some lost Easter eggs and hidden rooms that never made it into the final build. There is a lot of cool stuff to cover here, and of course, plenty more for the future, so make sure to stay tuned. And if you enjoy any of this, consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure to subscribe so you can come back for more. But without further ado, let's get into it. Starting things off today, we're talking about the rituals, which, as it turns out, the part locations have changed significantly since these early alpha builds. And last episode, we did actually touch on this because in the alpha, the hairpiece was going to be found here in the canals. This window location, which has the lady's secret sign over it, was originally the producer's office. And it was playable space. It was going to have a perk as well as the hairpiece part location. And it is kind of cool to go outside the map here and see from above the space they had to carve out. There's not a lot of area here, so it definitely wouldn't have been a very big room. But of course, it wasn't just the hairpiece that had a different location, it was also the fountain pen for the magician ritual, which normally you get this one by activating the crane here and dropping this box here on the floor. But it seems like by looking at these documents that the original location for this was the butcher. This door right here that I'm looking at was going to be one of the beast mode doors that you could break open when the player was in beast mode. And then they'd enter some kind of interior, obtain the part from the second floor, and then jump on out the window. And by the looks of it, this was going to be a place that you could enter as the player. You didn't have to be in beast mode to go in there, you just needed beast mode to open it. And here in game, well, there is a little bit of leftover geometry, although, part of it here is a window location, so it's kind of hard to tell where that starts and all of this leftover geometry begins, because there is a room up here. So you could definitely see how, this could have been a wall, and then right here is the area that they were thinking you'd jump out at. But still, with that being said, there definitely isn't any evidence of a staircase, although there's this extra piece of geometry here, which is like a hollowed out brick building. And it even has a door on the side that leads into the alleyway, which is also outside of playable space. It's just kind of cool putting that one together. Not sure if it's related, but my best guess is this is where the staircase would have been, and it would have led up to the second floor here. And continuing on with these ritual part locations, next we have the championship gloves, which, similar to the producer's office for the hairpiece, there was going to be a promoter's office for the boxer. And it's kind of hard to see in this screenshot exactly where this is, but if we fly on over here in game, we can see that the promoter's office was going to be in this building, which, coincidentally, is where that championship belt is hanging from a chain. But inside of here, it's very clear that there is no remnants left of this office. There's nothing inside that building at all. It seems just like with the other rooms, it was cut. However, for this one, the part wasn't moved very far. But it looks like you were going to go inside this promoter's office only in beast mode, and then strike down a trunk that would land in the alleyway below. Also, it should probably be said that there is a boxer's promoter office in the game. It's right through here. Just thought that was kind of a funny detail. The place did make it into the map, just in a very different location and not supporting the same purpose. And finally, for our last ritual item, we have the cop's badge, which was originally going to be in the Footlight District instead of in the canals like it is in game. And this one had a pretty strange method of getting the part. Apparently, right where we're looking was going to be a giant billboard with a woman's mouth that was open. And you were going to be able to use the beast mode to grapple up onto a ledge and activate a transformer, which lights up the sign and causes a door that's in the mouth to open, revealing a secret passageway. I'm guessing once again that this was going to be only accessible by beast mode, as I'm not sure how the zombies would have gotten up inside here, but if we go in the building, well, there's not really any geometry left here. Although, quick note, these billboards do have another side to them, which I'm sure are used somewhere around the map. But yeah, there clearly is no leftover room here. Perhaps right above us, there's sort of an encapsulated space, but there's not really a floor here, and there most certainly isn't any collision. But if we take a look at the caption here for this figure, we can see that the transformer for the signs is high on a wall, invisible and zappable from the apartment living room, listed in beast mode special locations. Which brings us to another cut location. The apartment that's being talked about would be right here. Although there isn't anything left in the release version, we can see that in these documents it was originally planned to have an interior that was exposed by a broken wall, and the player was going to be able to drop down the walkway or grapple across, as well as zap the transformer that would allow them to get the cop's badge. While there is no geo left over inside the building, there is this little balcony. This made it into the final release along with a grapple point, allowing us to sort of make the contrast there with what was originally planned. And before we go on to the next cut area, I do want to talk about the general idea behind these beast-only locations. They're labeled here as grapples, and it's said that they're supposed to be small ledge areas that can be grappled to, where the beast mode player can pick up power-ups. The power-ups would be randomized and positioned to be hard to see from the ground, so sort of like little hidden secrets that you could get to only in beast mode, and actually reminds me a lot of the cells from Mob of the Dead. Although you didn't need to use Afterlife to pick up the power-ups, you certainly used Afterlife to be able to obtain them. And it seems like these beast mode grapple locations were going to be similar, except the player could only get there in beast mode. Which for our next one of these, there was going to be one right in the middle of the map. The devs labeled this as an inset terrace, and judging by these pictures, it was going to be set just above the canals in the Junction, which places it in this building right here. And if we go inside, well, there is actually a little bit of a room here. And it's really cool to see the difference in dimensions here. Like, we have this black box room that doesn't quite line up dimensionally with, well, this area above it, which I'm pretty sure this is the level that the terrace was going to be, but sadly, there is nothing inside of there. And next up on our list, we're going back to the waterfront district, or the slums as they called it here in these dev docs, because this building right here was originally going to have a beast mode interior. This one's labeled as middle floor of building under construction. And judging by these pictures as well as the caption, there was going to be door-sized holes in the wall to allow the beast to grapple up and quickly traverse through the under construction building, grabbing a power-up along the way. Which I can definitely see how that would be the case. It seems like you were going to go right through here, have a little L-shaped interior, and then pop out on the other side. Which, as I was going through there, you might have noticed something that does still exist inside the building, and that's this little black box room. It still exists here because of the window location that's above it, acting as what looks like a super dark room that's hidden outside the map. Sadly though, there isn't any remnants of this beast mode location on the exterior or the interior for that matter. And although that one was pretty quick, we do have another beast mode location that was over in the canals. And this one, just like the ones before it, was meant to hold a power-up, and was labeled a broken away tower segment. And judging by this picture, well, it seems like it would have been in this tower right here, which has absolutely nothing on the interior, unfortunately. Although we can kind of stand here. Yeah, I don't think the game's very happy about it right now. This looks crazy. Don't mind these lines here. I'm pretty sure that's a debug feature for Black Ops 3. But yeah, this tower right here was originally going to be broken away. And it seems like it was going to have sightlines for the grapple points in the midsection of the canals, as well as the ledge for the brothel. And the more and more I look at all of these, it really does put together a full picture of what they were going for here with the beast mode. Because this sort of thing would have allowed you to use the beast mode right there, and then grapple on up to here, and then grapple even further across to the tower, and then finally grapple one last time over here to the Ruby Rabbit, essentially crossing the entirety of the canals in a very short amount of time. I won't lie, I really wish these existed, although this one I think would have been blocked pretty heavily by the rails. Still though, I think all of these would have been awesome. But we do have one last beast mode location, and it was going to be a broken away wall in the subway. Essentially a bit of a crawl space that would be above the tunnel. And of course, once again, a power-up nested inside. And by the looks of it, it would be above the tunnel that's right next to the door that led to the canals. Which, yeah, by the way, in the alpha, there were physical areas that led between this subway station and the different districts around the map. So not only was this going to have a physical tunnel like we covered in the last episode, right above here was going to be a beast mode location. A little hidden power-up, although there's literally nothing here in game. And for our next hidden areas, we have to first talk about the train a little bit, which I feel like is pretty underappreciated in Shadows of Evil. In all honesty, I barely use this thing. But judging by these dev docs, there was originally going to be some drop-downs that you could get to from the train. Essentially little hidden locations that you would only be able to access via parkour. And we can see here in the documents they had 3 locations planned. And apparently there was going to be switch levers that the player could shoot, causing the train to slow down and open relevant doors while over these locations. And inside these train-only locations would be unique weapon buys, and as well, crafting components, most likely for things like the shield. And for our first one of these, we have a luxury apartment in the theater district. Players were originally going to be able to jump down into the balcony of this central gap in the skyscraper, and there would be a hallway running through an apartment building that opens up to a balcony on the other side, which, looking at this next picture, you would be able to jump from that balcony over towards the sort of concession area that exists there in-game as well as in this alpha. And I gotta say, this is really cool to put together. So essentially, you would drop down here, right? And then there would be some sort of doorway on this side of the building. Of course, you'd be able to walk through it. There'd be some kind of hallway, some sort of interior, which there is some leftover decals here that are just sort of, well, flooding into this area. I'm not sure if these are actually left over from this geo or simply just overhanging from this ledge. But either way, you could certainly imagine being able to walk through there and then jump on over to get Juggernog. But for our next cut area, we're going back to the Waterfront District once again, because this rooftop was going to be one of these hidden areas. We can see here, looking at this picture, there's 3 areas labeled A, B, and C. And also that the rooftop was very different in this alpha build. It wasn't completely enclosed, and instead it was sort of broken, and had A as sort of a lower rooftop that's, well, funny enough, this right here. What is the top of this little office room in the release version? Well, it seems like it was going to be exposed in a potential area you could jump onto from the train. It would have a crafting component, while ledge B here would have a rickety board that would allow you to go into the promoter's office, where a special wallbuy would be, sort of giving a second purpose to this location that was originally going to have the championship belt. And also, I wonder what they would have done about zombies here. I suppose they could have just had a zombie spawn location inside the promoter's office. That would have sort of got rid of the camping issue here, but I think this would have been a very powerful camping location. And finally, there is one more train drop-down location, and it's right here in the canals. An area outside the map I've been wondering about for quite some time. If we take a look at the documents here, this one is labeled as a shopping area cross bridge. And on one end of it, there was going to be a door that led to a little indoor shopping area. And this bridge would house a crafting component behind a billboard that doesn't exist here in the picture, or in the release version for that matter. But on top of that, it would also have another special wallbuy. And with that being said, having like 3 special wallbuy locations, what kind of weapons would they have been? I mean, this idea has been done before, although I think only once that I can remember, and that was on Buried, where in the very beginning spawn room, if you got 3,000 points before leaving, you could do a little bit of parkour and get yourself the LSAT, starting off with one of the best weapons in the game. It's my best guess that that's the sort of thing they were going for here, so perhaps each location would have an LMG. Let me know down in the comment section what you would put in these locations. I'd love to hear your top 3 special wallbuys. And moving on to our next category here, we have some Easter egg stuff to cover. And for our first one, we're talking about the Wonder Weapon. And as we can see here, even inside of our mod menu on the vanilla version of Shadows of Evil, we have 4 different versions of them, which are all essentially the same exact gun, except with different names. The ID stands for Interdimensional, and within these leaked files, we can see all of their names, as well as the fact that each one of them was going to be able to be upgraded. And what's cool about this too is we don't just have a set of 4 names, we actually have 2 different sets. It seems that they were playing about with 2 different ways they could name the guns, which each one of these names, as we can see inside of another document, was going to be the name of a conscious gun entity. So essentially, these guns are aliens themselves. And each one of these were going to have their own upgraded version, with simply the word powered up added in this alien language. Which, talking about this alien language, we have some documents here showing the entire thing. The Apothecon stuff, the Keeper language. It's really cool to have access to all of this. I think most of this is out there on the internet already, but just in case, here is everything that's in the leaked dev docs. But inside of this alien language directory, next to the ID gun names file, is another file called ID gun VO lines. And I'm sure you know what that means. The ID gun was originally going to talk, which is crazy to think about. It seems there was going to be an initial pickup line, sort of greetings to the person who picks them up, as well as some combat lines too, talking about wanting to destroy, kill, consume, and gather zombie flesh. There's other ones as well that show the guns were not only going to talk to the player, but to each other. And although there's not exactly like a ton of voice lines here, still, it's just incredibly cool to think about this being the case. And definitely makes me wish it was, but unfortunately it just never made it into the game. But it looks like the ID gun wasn't the only thing that was gonna talk, because we can see the swords were going to do the same. We have a similar file that shows a whole bunch of voice lines for the swords. And in a very similar way, there were voice lines for the unupgraded version as well as the upgraded versions of the swords. Even having some voice lines that were timed with the number of slashes, which is crazy. It was literally gonna like count up as you were swinging, as well as some other ambient lines to be triggered by discovery events or when things are quiet. At least that's what it says here, which vary from some voice lines saying that my vision will banish the apothecon to the abyss, to others that say, I journey from the void. We can also see in these dev docs some concept art for the swords, which is really cool as well as some beta note stuff here. I'll just throw it on the screen. I think it's awesome. But with that being said, we do have some Easter egg stuff to go over, and for our next cut Easter egg, let's take a quick scroll through the main quest document. For the most part, this document shows that the main quest was planned from very early on and didn't really change all that much. We can see stuff about the gate worms, the summoning key, the cultist crates, collecting the personal items, and even some drawings here showing how that was going to happen. One change, I suppose, is this partner's badge thing, which was originally apparently going to have a 4-digit code that you had to find. That part was cut. However, it seems the location of the badge is in the canals, like we got in release. So this document had to be made after that secret door in the Footlight District got cut. But the ritual locations are in here, and for the most part, they didn't change either. And we can see that there was even some drawings here showing what the Pack-a-Punch area was going to look like, and the gate worms with these, like, beams of light, right? From each gate worm all the way to the Pack-a-Punch. It is really cool to see how they did this. There's even this, like, sort of further along version of the Pack-a-Punch room, too. And we can see what is quite literally a drawing of the Shadows of Evil Pack-a-Punch on top of a physical Pack-a-Punch model. But at the end of this main quest is the invasion. So essentially this only goes as far as unlocking the Pack-a-Punch, doing the rituals, getting the gate worms, opening the Pack-a-Punch, as well as starting this evasion that changes the skybox and shows the head of an apothecon god emerging from the swirling clouds. And apparently it says here that the apothecon god will kill the Shadow Man, to be determined by narrative, which I'm not really brushed up on my Shadows of Evil lore, but I don't think that ended up happening. I mean, you guys are gonna have to let me know down in the comment section. There's some stuff here that I don't even know if it's in the game, in all honesty. But I'm gonna show it to you guys, I'm gonna talk about it. We have something that they're calling the puzzle backlog. And this part isn't approved yet. It seems that there's side Easter eggs, and there's 3 of them. Window light projection, television light projection, and rotating light rigs. The first of which was going to use some street lights around the map that would be activated by the goo ball mechanic, which I guess this goo ability was replaced with the electric ability that we got on release. And that you were going to use grapple to remove posters from the windows. And it says that the stained glass windows will project down into the same space, creating some kind of image. And the second side Easter egg, this television light projection, well, we were going to use beast mode to turn on a series of televisions, which together will project an image of the occult. And when zombies step into the path of the projected image, a modifier is applied to their damage. So I guess a little side Easter egg that sort of functions as a trap. And lastly, we have the rotating light rigs. This one apparently was going to be in the burlesque, in that there's 3 lighting rigs in the rafters. Essentially, we would use the goo mechanic to activate the lighting rigs, and then rotate them so that they all point at the table, which would make a secret compartment in the table open up, revealing a special item. And I have no idea what that special item is. But if we do look inside the burlesque, there are lighting rigs in the rafters. More than 3, actually. You can't rotate them or anything, but they already are pointing at the table. Almost as if this Easter egg was done for us already. And finally, before I let you guys go, there's like a whole bunch of little Easter egg stuff that I think is super cool and I want to mention that are sort of scattered throughout these documents. There's a whole bunch of different documents in here. And I'm just going to sort of group all of this miscellaneous stuff together for you. The first of which is a flashlight mechanic that was cut from the game. It seems here that the devs were going to use this in the connections down to the Pack-a-Punch area. Essentially those cut pathways that link the Canals, Theater District, and the Waterfront District down to the subways. And it says that the flashlight would automatically be turned on, just like in Destiny. This mechanic, of course, ended up being used, but years into the future in Black Ops Cold War. It's kind of cool to see how that took a while to finally make it into the game. It seems that a dev named Tim was the one to suggest it, and I wonder if that's the same person who implemented it for Cold War, but I guess there's not really a good way to know that now. In these documents, there's also one for the Sten gun, which is a weapon that was added just for this map. We can see here some plans to give it this retro, futuristic Art Deco aesthetic, and some information about the Pack-a-Punch version, which says that its functionality and rounds would be modeled after a Jedi Knight 2 blaster rifle. So the Sten gun was not only added because it worked as a period-specific weapon, but also as a reference to Star Wars. Once again, I'm not very familiar with the Easter eggs in Shadows of Evil, but there is a dev document for the mystery box that lists an Easter egg called Drawn Inside. It says, triggered by an Easter egg quest, the activated box grabs the player with its tentacles and pulls them inside. And I'm pretty sure I would remember this if this was actually part of the game, but it would teleport the player to a strange pocket dimension. And in this strange pocket dimension would be a variety of weapons from zombies that just float about through the air. Essentially, the player would be teleported to this area that's supposed to be inside the mystery box. Instead of just hoping for good luck, we would be able to literally walk up to a weapon and pick it up from this pocket dimension. And then after a few seconds, the player would be pulled back through a vortex and then vomited out into the map. There's another document here for the Lil Arnie, and it says that it was originally going to be crafted, which was just a two-step process. First, we had to obtain the magic jar, which apparently would be placed at random location in the maps for players to find. And then secondly, we'd have to capture Lil Arnie. And we could see the sort of idea behind this. Essentially, the Lil Arnie would be like a whack-a-mole, just popping up in different areas, and you'd have to go over there and catch him before he disappears. He would be visible to all players, except only the ones who are in possession of empty jars would be able to capture him, which I guess suggests that everyone would be able to get an empty jar, and everyone would be able to get a Lil Arnie. This was a really cool idea, and I wonder if there's any remnants of these little locations hidden around the map. And lastly, we have a PowerPoint for the Beast mode, which talks about how it would be used to power up the map in sort of a different way that actually ended up happening. It seems that there was going to be a transformer for each district, and that would power the entire zone. And of course, that's not what we got on release. Instead, we have something that's very close to Mob of the Dead, where you have to shock different shock boxes to turn on individual perks and different things around the map. But we can also see that this is when they were talking about powered stairs, which did make it into the game, as well as powering the train stations. But lastly, something that's super cool to see, apparently there were going to be pull bridges, which of course we do have the grapple mechanic in Beast mode, which allows us to fling ourselves up to different areas. But it seems like we were going to also be able to use this to pull bridges and essentially make a new path for the player to go over. It looks like there was going to be 3 of these, one for each district, with one of them being this bridge right here. By the looks of it, this was for all of these upper pathways. And I suppose this would have added an extra dynamic to the map layout that never made it into the release version. But that is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure you're subscribed so you can come back for more. We do have more dev docs to check out in the future for the rest of Black Ops 3, so make sure to stay tuned. And if you want to watch more of my content, you can click one of the videos on your screen right now, but if not, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay awesome, and peace out.